Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. It's time now for another episode of Kallas with your host, Joe Staszak. That's me, Steve, right over there on the other side. How you doing, Steven? What's going on, man?
All good, Joe. Great to be with you as always.
Yeah, certainly, I appreciate that, and it's great to have the playoffs here. Finally, NBA playoffs get underway this weekend. What do you see in terms of upsets or whatnot? I mean, Golden State just got knocked out last night for the eighth seed, and I'm looking. Lakers are now healthy. Sixers number one seed. Bucks are playing better, and then there's always those Brooklyn Nets that are hanging around with. You never know who's going to start for them, suit up, who's going to be healthy. So, what are your thoughts on these playoffs? And of course, your Clippers. My Clippers, I should say. I don't know if they don't win this year, it might be time to blow them up. I don't know.
I think that's a true statement. If Paul George isn't Paul George, you can tell me you added Rondo, that's great. Ibaka, great. Batum, good. But if Paul George isn't Paul George, they're not winning.
Right.
I mean, that's the reality. And I know all the stories, they didn't have a point guard last year. To me, that had nothing to do with them losing. What had to do with them losing was Paul George, except for very brief periods, was just another player.
Disappeared.
As great as Kawhi is, and you know how great I think Kawhi is, he can't do it himself. I think there's a lot of interesting stories. The big three at the Nets have only played 8 games together. You're going to see if we can really click the switch. At least AD and LeBron played essentially a whole season, albeit a short one. That was so different last year. I think there's the mental toughness that LeBron has that can do the whole bubble thing. I mean, look, it was incredibly hard for everybody, but I think it's no accident that his was the team that won. But now there's so much going on. Does anybody really believe in Utah? I think Phoenix can beat the Lakers. I don't know that I'd pick them, but I think they can. But the Lakers are the overwhelming favorite. Again, I'm not a gambler, but I think the Lakers were like minus 300 to win the series. And again, I don't know what the plus was on the Phoenix side, but if I had to bet, which I don't, I would bet Phoenix for sure. But as you said, both of those guys are healthy. They have a big shot. I think Utah's going to win. I think most of the favorites are going to win. The Clippers are in the 4-5 with the Mavs as they were last year. And I think the Clippers are going to put it all together. Ibaka came back for the last 2 games. And, the play-in, I almost don't want to talk about the play-in. Of course, Golden State and the Lakers was a great game. But I think 50 years from now, they played in something called the play-in, and they were the 7th and 8th seed. What was that all about? Because I think the play-in is a joke. Most of those games were very lopsided, as you know. And I'm sorry, I don't believe in it. But whatever. It's kind of bad for Golden State because the reality is they were in 8th place, and they don't make the playoffs. And you can tell me they lost 2 games, but I can tell you they played all season and they were in 8th. So they should have been in. And of course, you want Curry in, not out. I'm a little surprised Curry's in the MVP Final 3 with who we thought he'd be in with Jokic and Embiid. But he's on an 8th place team that didn't even make the playoffs. As great as he was great. You want to talk about most outstanding player for the season? You might give it to Curry. Or you might give it to Jokic. Or you might give it to Embiid. But they're on high-end winning teams. And the fact that the Nuggets still played great after Murray got hurt, I think Jokic should get the MVP. But whatever. And over in the East, I think it's all on the Nets. Can they play together? And I don't know that they can or can't. We're going to find out. They don't defend really well. The top 3, maybe Durant plays defense, Harden and Kyrie not so much. The 3-point shooter, the number 4 guy, Joe Harris, he's, he doesn't defend that well. So I think there's going to be some high-scoring games, even though it's the playoffs. But do I think the Sixers can beat them in the finals if they both get there? I think they can if they're healthy. If their 5 starts, they're really incredible, the Sixers. They'll have home court advantage, which for them is a big advantage because they're the number 1 seed. So I know a lot of people are picking Lakers Nets finals. I'm actually picking Clippers 76ers finals. How about you?
I'm one of those people that are taking the Nets. I can't. I'm sorry. I've been around this team a long time. I don't know if I believe you. This is one I need to see to believe. I need to see Ben Simmons have a really strong playoff series because you know, think about it. A superstar usually is very skilled in all five elements of his game, or whatever, how many elements there are. But Ben Simmons, to be a superstar, he's not a good free throw shooter, and he doesn't shoot. So he does some other things well. But I think, maybe there's some overrated to Ben Simmons, although he does do some things very well that he does do well. And Embiid, I think Embiid, it's all going to come down to Embiid. I think he's serious this year. He's in better shape. He seems more focused and not so much into the social media and goofing around and whatnot. And so I think there's a very good chance, if everything goes right, yeah, I could see the Sixers there, but I'm just going with the Nets because I will believe it when I see it. And over in the West, I got to go with the Clippers since I took the Clippers in the beginning of the season. I took them last year like you did. And I think that I heard Doc Rivers talking about what happened to them last year, but basically you're right. It came down to Paul George. I mean, your stars have to play like stars in the playoffs. It's bottom line. They have to play like stars in the playoffs. And he didn't. And Kawhi didn't play all that great in Game 7 either. He was, horrible. They lost 3 games to 1. So you have to, if you're going to be a superstar, you got to come up big in those spots. But yeah, so I think it's going to be interesting. One thing that's no one's really talking about this team this year. Last year, I might have had them to go to the finals with the Clippers, but and they came in third in the East this year, and the Greek Freak and all that, and he's unbelievable. The Milwaukee Bucks, how come no one's really talking about them to possibly, can they step their game up in the playoffs here and become the team that kind of we thought were last year? They had a two game to none lead over the Raptors 2 years ago, and they blew that in the Eastern Conference Finals. And then, they haven't been quite the same, but can Milwaukee be a team to win the whole thing?
I think they can be, but I think it's less and less. And look, they got Antetokounmpo to sign that max deal, which everyone was afraid was he going to leave, but he didn't leave. They finished third, which, they were a dominant first, I think. Weren't they like a 62-win team last year or something like that? You still have the issue. They're going to let him shoot threes. He's improved a little, but has he improved enough? And they still have, I think, what they're going to do to Simmons also, that kind of 4 across almost zone type thing where you can't really, in transition, you can get it. But if you have to set up half court, it's going to be hard for both of those guys to score. Now, if somehow Antetokounmpo can make threes, and there's been a few games when he has, but for the most part, you're letting him shoot. I don't know if you saw the Memphis game the other day at the beginning, they let John Morant shoot because he couldn't shoot threes. He made like 4 of them. And that, frankly, to me, was the difference in the game. I don't know how they beat Golden State. I didn't give them any chance, but that was part of the difference. That's 12 points that you don't expect. Maybe you expect them to hit 1. So I think the Bucks are a possibility, but I think they're a weakened possibility because they've been at this level for 3 years, and they're not even, at least during the regular season, the level that they were the last 2. So that's a problem. And so they're going to have to go through, by definition, an extra team, if you will, to get to the Eastern Conference Finals or to the NBA Finals. So I still like the Sixers. I know we were frankly laughing at Charles Barkley when in the middle of the year, he said, yeah, now it's time for Ben Simmons to start practice shooting outside shots. He's got to, and I remember we were talking, what does he think? He's a rookie?
Right.
He's in the league 4 years. He's never shown any affinity to even try, which is very sad. You're right about the super duper star all-time great. But Simmons is a candidate, and rightfully so, for Defensive Player of the Year, right? One of the final 3. And in transition, I won't say he's the Greek Freak, but he's in the neighborhood of the Greek Freak.
So
they're
fast.
probably the 2 best going to the basket in transition. They're virtually unstoppable. You can throw LeBron in there if you want, but you know what I'm saying in terms of that type of game. So I don't know what the Sixers do to contemplate that, because he's not even thinking about taking threes. At least Antetokounmpo will take them. And if he's hot, it'll be a John Morant game from the other. You better go out and get him, or else, you're going to be in deep trouble. So I think the Bucks have a chance, but I don't like them. I would like the Sixers and the Nets before I like the Bucks. And there's no accident that they're 1, 2, 3 in the standings. You got to worry about the Lakers because it's still LeBron and AD if they're healthy. Um, but I don't, I just don't see it. They're starting from the 7th seed, and they got a very tough round in the first round. Maybe Chris Paul is the MVP. We're going to find out.
Yeah, we certainly will. One last thing on the NBA, because I thought this it was a little interesting. A few years back, LeBron got a knock. The knock on him, this is when he was in Miami way back, so a few years ago, that he kind of disappeared and wilted and vanished like in the last 2 minutes. Wasn't good at taking the last shot, wasn't a clutch shooter, blah, blah, blah. Since then, he's won 3 championships, and I've seen him come up huge at the buzzer in many different situations. A couple playoff games, the one where the runner, I think it was against Boston or maybe Toronto a couple years ago when he was with Cleveland. He had a bomb the other night against Golden State with, a couple seconds left. Has that vanished, the whole kind of the aura over LeBron that he wasn't clutch and didn't come up big late because of what he's done recently? I think he's clutch now. I don't even remember that stuff. But back then when people were saying, I said, let me watch this and see if it's really true. And in game 5 of that series against Dallas or game 6, he disappeared in the 4th quarter and didn't look like he wanted to touch the ball. Different LeBron these days.
I think it's been silenced. I think, however, when LeBron takes threes, you're not overly confident. It's not Curry or Lillard or one of those. Right. But the one he took the other day was 34 feet in the last minute to give them the lead, and that proved to be the game winner. My view, though, if you take any shot tied or up 1, it's a lot easier than taking a shot down 1. It's a totally now, does that affect you mentally? No, I'm not really sure. But if you miss that shot, you're tied. You're still looking at overtime. And actually, it was with like 52 seconds left, and nobody scored on either side the rest of the game. So I know that's a long 52 seconds, but it's still 52 seconds on the clock. So no, I give him credit. I think he's a clutch player. It's interesting, and you'll love this. I just interviewed my high school coach, Brendan Malone, and I'll send that to you and we'll post it when it's up.
Thank you.
We're talking about LeBron versus Michael versus Kobe. He says as great as LeBron is, he doesn't have that competitiveness at the level that both Jordan and Kobe had, where he literally described, he went like this, where they'll reach into your chest and take your heart out happily or something like that. And that's interesting. But I think in today's game, frankly, with no Kobe and no Jordan, he's as competitive or more competitive than anybody. But I think in terms of shot making, there are guys, years ago when Jerry West took an outside jumper, it was going in. When Steph Curry takes a jumper, it's going in. When Lillard takes a jumper, it's going in. These other guys, Antetokounmpo, and I understand LeBron's a little better than Antetokounmpo. He's in the, I want to say mid-30s, which frankly now, Joe, is average.
Yeah.
He's an average three-point shooter. And I'm not knocking that because he made the big one from 34 feet.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think the criticism of him has kind of been silenced. And don't forget all those years, he was virtually a one-man wrecking crew.
Right.
Especially early with some of those Cleveland teams that he took to the finals. You're like, who else could take this team to the finals? Nobody. And the answer is very few, if not 0 other players. And so his record in the finals might be some kind of knock on him in the future. But if you live through it like we did, what he took to the finals. Most players, virtually all players, could not have done what he did. So I think it's wrong to give him, he's got a poor record in the finals, because I think that's baloney.
I agree.
When he had the guys, and you need the guys, no matter who you are. See Jordan without Pippen.
Right.
You need other guys. And when he got them, he won championships.
Totally agree, man. Good stuff. I don't know what to say about Major League Baseball. We talked about this exact topic last week, and 2 more no-hitters, Spencer Turnbull, Corey Kluber. What the hell's going on? But when I was growing up, a no-hitter was so rare. It was, oh my God, he threw a no-no in the perfect game. Obviously, much more rare, but 6 in 42 days? Like, what's happening right now?
One a week, 6 and 42 days.
Yeah, right.
Look, Spencer Turnbull for the Tigers, Corey Kluber for the Yankees. You give them both credit. People are saying this is history forever, no matter when you do it. And yeah, it'll be in the history books. It's one of so many no-hitters, though. And don't forget Bumgarner's 7-inning no-hitter, which I think has to be a no-hitter. The Major League Rule Book says you have to pitch 9 innings for a no-hitter, but the Major League Rule Book last year and this year says in doubleheaders you can only pitch 7 innings. So there'll never be a no-hitter in the history of the rest of baseball forever when you have a doubleheader.
Wow.
This is the first time. Don't forget, I told you the Andy Hawkins back in 91 threw an 8-inning no-hitter and lost. And now when they rewrote the rules, he didn't get credit for a no-hitter. What could he do? He doesn't come out for the 9th because, because the home team won.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
right.
I think it's a stupid rule. In terms of what's happening, again, those guys get credit. They did it back-to-back days. That hasn't happened too often. But we're in a strikeout home run world. And the strikeout records, which are obviously important to me, it's nothing compared to a no-hitter, but the strikeout records that are being set, and equaling guys like Nolan Ryan, to me, you shake your head. Not that these guys aren't good pitchers, but it's a totally different mindset if you're a hitter and you believe in analytics and launch angle and swing from the heels, because if you strike out 200 times and hit 30 home runs, apparently that's a good season now under the analytics, I guess, because it can help you win games. If you hit a home run, maybe they'll say it doesn't matter if you strike out the other 3 times because you put a run on the board. You get 5 guys like that, you got 5 homers and 15 strikeouts. But I just heard I'm trying to think who it was, Yankees, White Sox. Oh, Rodon, who threw a no-hitter yesterday. Rodon and Jordan Montgomery for the Yankees. They're the first pitchers ever in the modern Major League Baseball, and modern Major League Baseball, at least for this stat, is defined as 1900, the year 1900. It's the first time ever two starting pitchers had 10 or more strikeouts, no runs, no walks. First time ever. Rodon, the White Sox guy who threw a no-hitter before, had 15. Jordan Montgomery, who struggled to get here, but he's pitching well for the Yankees, had 11. First time ever in the history of baseball, Joe. So you're seeing the first time ever. I think Cole set the mark for most consecutive strikeouts without a walk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not saying the strikeout records are phony. You just have to look at them in a different context. I'm not saying the no-hitters are phony. You just have to look at them in a different context. And I think there's been nothing no-hit wise, 6 before Memorial Day, nothing close to that has ever happened in baseball. And you got to think there's going to be more. I'm not saying 1 a week, but at the end of this year, if you don't have like 10 or 12 no-hitters, I'll be shocked. And I'm going to guess that's going to break the all-time record. If they haven't already broken it, I don't know what the record is for no-hitters in a year, but that's coming next.
I think so too. It's just, baseball tried to shorten the game a little bit, but it's not. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's as much action as there used to be. And to be honest, it was never more fun when they were on steroids. It's a shame, I know, but that's when there was action. And then they de-juiced the ball, I guess, a little bit in the last couple of years, and it's grip it and rip it type league right now. And it's just, I mean, I like watching the pitchers do it once in a while, but 6 no-hitters, are you serious?
No, it's very sad. The analytics, from a viewing perspective, they're ruining the game, but all the teams think the analytics are necessary to win. And that's the problem. At the end of the day, you have to win games. And if that becomes home run records and strikeout records and no-hitter records, I guess it's so be it. But I'm sure you, like me, you start watching the game and like you're sleeping, because I think walks and strikeouts and home runs, I thought I saw a number, it was like up to 40% of the at-bats, or even 43%. And that's ridiculous because there's not much action. The home run's a thrill.
Right.
Strikeouts and walks are not. And of course, that's the overwhelming majority. And you're going to set another record this year. I think last year, for the first time, or maybe 2019, it was the first time for the whole Major League season there were more strikeouts than hits. and they're already well ahead of themselves this year to break that record. And that's not going to change as long as analytics rule the game.
That's incredible. That what you just said is incredible. All right, let's talk a little NHL. Some interesting matchups. I always thought Tampa had a chance to win a cup again. They have a very strong team. They're up 3-1 on the Panthers. I like the Bruins coming out of the East, to be honest. In jest, I took the Capitals, but no. And once Barry Trotz left and I got my one championship, I'm off the Caps. I watched them play so many times against the Flyers this year, and they still have Krejci and Pasternak and Marchand. I don't know when those guys are going to retire. They've been to the Cup finals twice, won it once in the last 10 years. And then your Maple Leafs, major injury to John Tavares. Now, what's the story with him? Because that could be a big setback.
He's out indefinitely. He took a shot, but worse, on the way down, he got kneed in the head accidentally by Parry. And then Parry, frankly, had to take a beating. Wasn't his fault.
Right.
And supposedly, I heard the guys on NHL Tonight saying he took a beating and never really threw a punch. But it wasn't his fault. He went up to Tavares, who was carted off. So now Tavares is out indefinitely with a head injury. I'll be shocked if he comes back. And he's a key to them. He's not the star. Matthews is the star, but Tavares is a great hockey player, not a good one. And I think that's a big blow to the Maple Leafs. I don't know if he can get back. The hockey players, they are tougher than any other players, including football players in my book.
Oh, they
are get their teeth knocked out and they come back in the next period.
Right back in.
They can barely skate off the ice and they come back in the next period. He's a hockey player to show toughness has kind of become a thing. I'm rooting for the Maple Leafs. I'm less down on them now. And I wish they could win a cup. They haven't won since 1967. And, still in Canada. Again, it was funny. My high school coach, Brendan Malone, I just interviewed him. He was the first coach of the Raptors in the mid to late 90s. And he was saying, I went up there and I had to give the press a conference on NBA rules. But yet when they beat the Bulls, the 72-10 Bulls that year, he said when I walked out of the arena, they were dancing in the streets, literally. So they've come a long way in Toronto. And of course, they won a couple of years ago, with Kawhi. But the Maple Leafs hockey is still king in Canada, as you know, 1967. And then that prior 10-year period, there's actually a book that I have, 1957 to 1967 NHL, Canadiens v. Toronto. One or both of them were in the finals every year. It's kind of like the Yankees and the Dodgers and Giants back then.
Exactly right.
So I'd love to see them win. I think this is a taller task now. Tavares is certainly out for this series. And again, when you see it, you kind of want to go like this, but it wasn't Parry's fault. He was literally just skating, and Tavares went from here to down here where Parry's knee was as he was skating by him. It was split second like that. I guess they felt they had to fight him because it's hockey. I didn't think they had to in that situation. He tapped Tavares on the stomach when he was being carted off. He did all the right things. It was a terrible accident. Having said that, the Maple Leafs lose one of their best players and arguably the heart and soul of their team.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to go down some of the rest of the series. Tell me if you think anything's odd here, or does anything jump out at you? I said the Bruins are up on the Caps 3-1. Carolina over the Predators 2-1. Jets lead the Oilers 2-0. The Colorado Avalanche, good team this year, very strong in the standings. They're up 3-0 on the Blues, who haven't been anything since they won their cup a couple of years ago with Craig Berube and company. We mentioned Tampa Bay has a 2-1 lead, and they're leading pretty heavily right now in the second period over Florida. Pittsburgh over the Isles 2-1. Maple Leafs down to the Canadiens 2-1, and the Vegas Golden Knights. There's an interesting team. They've been hanging around, and I never forget when you said they should take Marc-Andre Fleury with their first pick, and they never looked back. They went to the finals against the Caps in the first year, and they went heavily into the playoffs last year, and they're still a pretty strong team. Any chance maybe they finally break through?
I just think Vegas can't get over the hump. Do they have the ability and the goalie to win? I mean, yeah, Fleury won cups with the Penguins. I don't know if that was a money dump or not, but that's maybe the greatest first round draft pick. Way back when the NHL went from 6 to 12 teams, the other 6 new teams got the scrubs. You know, you
Yeah.
expect like 10 guys or something. So they got the scrubs and they were terrible at the beginning. I think they can, but out of all those teams, I like the Tampa Bay story because they still have Vasilevsky, who's an excellent goalie. You know the story. Kucherov didn't play the whole year, then scored 2 goals and an assist in the first game. Stamkos, who only had 1 goal in the playoffs last year because he was hurt, hadn't played since April 8th till a few days ago. And if he gets healthy, and I think he had a goal in game 2, I want to say, not in game 1. If those two guys are 2 of the premier offensive players with an excellent goalie, and you know that's kind of the recipe, if you will, to win the cup. So if I had to pick another team after, I hope the Leafs, I'd go Tampa Bay right now because they must be riding an emotional high. And those 2 guys, if nothing else, are incredibly fresh, which is what you need in the playoffs.
I agree, buddy. Great stuff. So the heart of the playoffs is here right now. Great stuff by you, pal. You can catch our podcast either on YouTube or my Facebook page or Steve's Facebook page. Speaking of sports with Steve Kallas, you can also catch his videos, westchestercountypost.com, and his other videos, some interviews he has and some stories on YouTube as well. And like I said, his Facebook forum page, Speaking of Sports with Steve Kallas. Good stuff, buddy. Great to see you, man. And we'll catch up with you next week.
Same here, Joe. Always a pleasure.
You too, pal. All right, folks. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll catch up with you in a few days.